Hi, this is Rick Frederick with an introduction to our book series by Heath Hodges and myself. This channel on YouTube we're referring to as Contending with a contending.org website that should be up pretty soon. Dr. Hodges and I are both psychologists with specialties in forensic psychology, and we consult to attorneys about a variety of matters, including doing evaluations. If you have any consultation issues, you're welcome to contact us at these emails. We only consult to attorneys. We don't consult to plaintiffs or defendants. And so our emails are out here and on our respective websites. So what the purpose of our consultation is to help attorneys who are in a situation. And so the situation would be that they're involved in some sort of litigation, prosecution, defensive prosecution. And we see as a legitimate goal that they intend to win their case, or they intend to do what's in the best interest of their client to the maximum degree. And the attorneys are aware of what the issues are in their case and what they need to do to prevail. And then what happens is that a psychologist or some other mental health provider or professional conducts an evaluation that is unfavorable to their position. And they can't stop this opinion from coming out. It's going to be out. It's going to be part of the evidence. So one thing that's possible is simply for the attorney to concede that the adversarial finding is not capable of being effectively disputed. They then change their goals in the matter and work to find the best solution for their client given the new circumstances. It's often true that what they will do instead is to find another expert to conduct another evaluation, hoping that their opinion will rebut or be in direct contrast to the opinion of the opposing expert, and then plan how to prevail at trial or mediation or some way to continue to find a solution that's advantageous to their parties. What we do is consult to attorneys who trying to find a way to contend with the unfavorable evaluation without actually conducting an evaluation ourselves. Now, it's often true that what we will do is to recommend an evaluation by somebody else. Now, we don't do evaluations in cases in which we're consulting because that would be a conflict of interest. So the book series that Dr. Hodges and I are developing relate to all sorts of issues that come up in consultation in these matters and the sorts of issues that we face. The role of consultation is to evaluate the methodology of the opposing expert. So we'll talk a little bit more about that, but basically what we're focused on is not the characteristics of the individual. We're not trying to find a way to say something new about the defendant or the litigant or the plaintiff. We don't do evaluations of them. What we're doing is exploring the reliability and validity of the methodology employed by the opposing expert. Now, in doing that, we often start our reviews with the expertise or the credentials of the person who conducted the evaluation. So it will be very important to evaluate their CVs, their resumes, their vitas, and so forth. Now, what we will do is to identify all the potential hypotheses and arguments that arise from the unfavorable evaluation and provide support for those hypotheses. and opposing hypotheses. And so what we're doing is we're looking at the data that were generated by the other expert, evaluating whether the methodology that they employed to get to their conclusions was reliable, but also saying this, here are some potential explanations of the data that were or were not considered by this other expert, and here's what you can do about that. And we have a lot of confidence that rival hypotheses exist because psychology is a soft science. There are many potential explanations for what is observed. Now, once we identify those competing explanations, there are many courses for the attorney which include a direct challenge in Daubert or Frye or some sort of evidentiary challenge at court of the other experts' findings. And this has been very successful. We've had a lot of cases where we've had favorable Daubert challenges in which the opposing expert's testimony was excluded as unreliable or invalid. And more commonly, we are assisting in preparing the attorney for questioning and challenging the expert's adverse opinions. This can lead to a resolution of important issues at mediation or plea bargaining. It could also increase your confidence in litigating the case, prosecuting it, or defending against prosecution. And of course, it might include a recommendation for another evaluation by an independent evaluator. Now, back to this idea of psychology as a soft science. It's not a hard science. So you see many psychologists who will say, I'm a scientist, and it's hopeful that they will employ the scientific method in their work and in their analysis, but it's not true ever that psychology is a hard science. The psychology of people, human behavior is complex. There are many causes of human behavior. There is no way to simply explain human behavior with, highly confident explanations. So there are many potential explanations for why things occur. And so what it comes down to is that often what is expressed as opinion is nothing more than conjecture. The explanation cannot be demonstrated because the information cannot be complete. It can't be complete because there isn't an exhaustive way to evaluate all of human behavior. Now, not only is there incomplete information, but there's also bias and subjectivity in the construction of explanations and opinions. And there are fewer constraints on biased opinions in psychology than in the hard sciences. And so, for example, it's important to understand that the psychologists are never measuring anything. They may give all the tests in the world, but they are not measuring anything. Let's just imagine the obvious difference between measuring things like weight and temperature and height and area and volume. These are all objectively evaluated, and any variability in such measurements has to do with the quality of the measurement devices. But psychologists cannot measure depression or psychosis or cooperation and effort. They can't measure IQ. They can have many IQ tests. But what those tests depend upon is a lot of subjectivity, a lot of observations that may or may not directly relate to ideas such as IQ, depression. Often you are just asking people to rate how they feel, and that is not a measurement of depression. And such things are quite variable and unreliable because people's attitudes and moods and ideas change quite a bit. In hard sciences, on the other hand, we have ideas that are easily captured, measured, and exhaustively measured. So If we want to know at what temperature water boils, and if we know things like at what altitude are you and how pure is the water, we can give you a very precise indication of what temperature the water needs to be to boil. And we can change any of those variables to change the temperature of where water boils. It only boils at 100 degrees Celsius at sea level when the water is pure. Changing these other things, and we know what's going to happen because these variables are easily captured and measured, and that is not true in psychology. Now, the influences on behavior are just too varied and too unpredictable to permit strong confidence in the prediction of human behavior. So what ethical psychologists will do is acknowledge that their opinion is merely one of those chosen from potentially many opinions. And even if they have a lot of confidence that a person has this diagnosis or they have these capabilities, it's always true that there may be a better explanation for what is happening. And a good consultant psychologist can often identify hypotheses that were not examined and can identify whether any data that were generated in the adversarial or the adverse evaluation might support those hypotheses. So our book series is sold through Kindle. You'll find a link to the book series in the description to this video. Thank you very much. Goodbye.